Meet new people and express your true self. Play I Am VU, and you can customize your avatar and world to your tastes. In this virtual universe, you can choose from over 54 million items and join in on over 300,000 chat rooms. Create your unique style and show it off to millions of IMVU users around the world. Come find your community on IMVU, whether that be friends or more. Dress, play, connect. Download IMVU from the App Store or Google Play today.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Don't Mom Alone podcast. I'm your host, Heather McFadden, and this is the place where I get to walk alongside you and connect you with people and resources so you know that you don't mom alone. This is week 6 of our Summer of Mentorship, a 6-week series we do where we republish previous episodes. This episode is with Dr. Curt Thompson. It originally aired in January of 2021.
One of the things that we realize in the scriptures is that as the scriptures unfold the story of human beings, anytime it mentions sin, frequently shame is attached in the Hebrew language. Shame is part of that. And one of the things that we notice about shame is that because we are immobilized and we are hiding, shame does not actually ever allow us to move toward God. This is why we have to have someone come and find us. This is why that when our children are experiencing shame, we have to go and find them. This is why it's important for us as parents. If we're going to go and find our children, we as parents also must have others who are coming to find us.
Dr. Thompson is a psychiatrist and an expert on the effects of shame and how to find freedom from the lifelong negative messages that come after us and our family. He's written some amazing books, Anatomy of the Soul of Shame, and 2 books that have come out since this episode first released, The Soul of Desire and The Deepest Place. He shared so many things in this episode that I knew it needed to be our last part of the Summer of Mentorship. Let me remind you that this summer we thought we'd focus on a book I read at the beginning of the year, Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. And the premise of that book is to be with Jesus, become like him, and do as he did. And that last part, do as he did, is what I want to focus in on with this episode, particularly when it comes to shame. But also, there was a part of the episode that stuck with me and has been a perspective shift for me as a mom. And I even wanted to highlight it here in the intro. He says, the beautiful thing is Jesus isn't worried about our kids. So if we're going to do as Jesus did, Jesus isn't led by worry. He goes on to say, he's not worried about your mothering. So he's delighted. He knows how hard this work is. And he knows that we will do it imperfectly. Even when we have our worst moments in which we foist shame upon our kids, or when our kids experience shame against everything that we're doing to try to combat it, God is saying, I'm not worried. I never run out of options. That was so encouraging to me. If you're going into the school year and your heart and mind are tending towards worry, whether it's about your kids or whether it's some other thing that's going on in your life, I just feel like if we could lean into that aspect of who Jesus is and how he manages life, he's not worried. The other part of the conversation that I feel like helps us connect with what Jesus did is shame, and how when we experience toxic shame, it isolates us, it removes us from people, and we're reminded from the Garden of Eden and how God comes after Adam and Eve that he's always coming to find us. And we can experience that kind of support and connection in community. If we foster those kinds of communities, we can also do it for our kids. And I just love that Jesus modeled that for us. He went after those who were isolated in shame, whether it was because of the culture and whatever position they found themselves in, a medical condition that was considered unclean, a choice that they made or they found themselves in. Jesus always went after the outsider and pursued them and brought them in. And so I just want to encourage us moms to not let other moms sit in shame. Seek out others when we're stuck in that shame cycle. I know for me, even the beginning of the summer, I was in a really bad shame cycle on a walk, and I just reached out to my life team and was on the phone with one of those members, and he just really reminded me of who I am and the truth, and that is what we need in each other. So let's get right to it. Sorry for the long intro, but this was a really important episode. I'm so glad I get to share it with you again. Here we go. Dr. Thompson, welcome to the Don't Mom Alone podcast.
Heather, thank you so much. It is a delight to be with you today.
Well, I have been soaking myself in the words of your book, The Soul of Shame, and I wish I had this in my mind and my heart when I had younger children, even college. This would have been helpful information for me as I've walked through life. So if I can introduce the moms and the dads that listen to this show to your work and to the truth of the enemy's attempts to disrupt our lives and to disengage us from one another and from our family units, and if we can give them a way out, that to me would be a successful episode. So thank you for being willing to engage in this and to share. It really is. Let's start with shame. So I've done a few episodes here or there and mentioned it, but for those who haven't heard those, I'd love for you to kind of break it down for us.
Yeah. Sometimes people will ask me, well, first of all, as I said in our warm-up time, Heather, just thank you so much for your kind invitation to have me on your podcast. It's great to be here. And as I said, it's always humbling to be invited into a space where so many people are working so hard to follow Jesus, because following Jesus is really hard to do. At least it is for me. And so I'm grateful to be part of a community that is working to be the body of Christ, and to, as I say, where we are practicing for heaven. As a patient of mine said yesterday, we are training for reigning, REIGHNING, which I think is really apropos.
Yeah.
When it comes to shame, there are a couple things that I think that are important. One is that we learn about the reality of the world, about who we are as human beings in a number of different ways. But one of those ways is, of course, we learn from the biblical text. And another way that we learn is through science. That's another way that we learn. Science is a way. It's not the only way. It's certainly not the most important way, but it is a way. And when you look at shame, you see some parallel tracks right out of the gate in terms of the biblical narrative and in terms of what we learn from science. So if we first talk about what we know about how shame actually works, we don't actually have a definition for it as much as we have a description for what happens. And the first thing it's important for our listeners to know is that shame is first and foremost a neurophysiologic event. It is a thing that happens first and foremost primarily in our bodies, in our embodied state. So when, it doesn't really take much to say, like, well, do you know what it's like to feel ashamed? Well, of course, like all of our listeners, like, we know exactly what it feels like. And it could be anything from some small embarrassment that happens to some, large, humiliating single event, or it could be that felt sense that we carry with us because of an extension of a number of different events that have taken place. If I lived in a home of great poverty, if I lived in a home where there was sexual or physical or emotional abuse that takes place, shame can become pervasive and deeply embedded. But before it's anything that I would talk about as an abstract idea, it is a thing that I feel in my body. And perhaps if we have more time set another time to come back and talk about the details of those mechanics, we can do that. But for now, it's important to know that when we experience shame from a neurobiological standpoint, from a brain standpoint and a body standpoint, there are two or three things that stand out about it. One, and this is really important to know, is that shame we can begin to sense it and feel it and respond to it as early as 15 to 18 months of age.
Yeah. When I heard that, I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like a lot of pressure for a mom.
Yeah. And here's one thing I tell parents. Look, the only way you're not going to screw up your kids is if you don't have them. It's the only way you don't screw up your kids. Yeah. I have a daughter who's 30 and a son who's 27. And, they're wonderful people. And they are living, breathing proof that, like, if we're going to have our kids, they are going to have their own experiences of brokenness. They're just going to have them. And we are going to be part of that. And here's the beautiful thing is, Heather, Jesus isn't worried about that. He's not worried about our kids.
Yeah.
He's not worried about your mothering. He's not worried. He's delighted. He knows how hard this work is. And he knows that we will do it imperfectly. And Good Friday, seen through the lens of Easter, is God's message to say, I'm not worried about evil because it can't control me. Even when we have our worst moments in which we foist shame upon our kids, in which our kids experience shame against everything that we're doing to try to combat it, God is saying, I'm not worried. I never run out of options. And so even though it begins early in our kids' history, it also is a message to us that God is always present in the middle of that. One of the other things that shame will tend to do then, it neurobiologically, we say that it disintegrates us. It cuts off my thinking brain from my feeling brain from my body. I don't function well or clearly. Imagine what it's been like for you to try to think clearly or to create or to cooperate or to enjoy anything when you're in the middle of an experience of shame. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Another feature is that we tend to automatically, and we don't even need to think about doing this, we tend to isolate. Now, we don't just isolate parts of my brain's activity from other parts. My thinking brain gets cut off and isolated from my feeling brain. But I, as an individual, also will turn and isolate myself from you, from others. Shame has me not wanting you to see it. And as such, I will turn away from you. Many of us have seen a dog experience shame. A dog will put its head down, put its tail between its legs. It lowers its eyes. It's basically neurophysiologically turning away from us. Another feature is that the cognitive element, so I'm hiding from you, and the cognitive element of shame, my thinking brain, the part of it that thinks about what I'm feeling, is one of condemnation. There's something wrong with me. I'm bad. I am worthless. I am insignificant. I am, and then just fill in the blank. All these, I'm not enough. All of these are words that we use to help us explain and make sense of what this thing is that we are sensing. It also tends to move us toward what I would call stasis. And by stasis, I mean we don't move. And without movement, right, like shame literally tends to move the body into a place of immobility. First, it is my mind that is immobilized, and then my body is immobilized. And I do not move toward the other. I don't move toward you. When I, as a parent, am ashamed about something that I've done toward my child, I just want to run away.
Yeah.
I just want to leave. And I want to go hide and crawl up into a ball because I feel so bad. The whole notion of moving toward my child, or the whole notion of when my child feels shame, the whole notion that they might want to move toward me is not something they're going to want to do. One of the things that we realize in the scriptures is that as the scriptures unfold the story of human beings, anytime it mentions sin, frequently shame is attached in the Hebrew language. Shame is part of that. And one of the things that we notice about shame is that because we are immobilized and we are hiding, shame does not actually ever allow us to move toward God. This is why we have to have someone come and find us. This is why that when our children are experiencing shame, we have to go and find them. This is why it's important for us as parents. If we're going to go and find our children, we as parents also must have others who are coming to find us. We cannot give what we do not have. And God does not expect us to give to our children out of our own personal reserves. We give to our children out of the reserves that we are receiving from others who are coming to find us. And what shame will want to do will be to have us hide and isolate and then be unable to create. This is the last thing I'll say about it. The purpose of humans being created, according to the Genesis text, was not just to be God's images in the sense of how we think and move and reason, but we were to bear God's image in the way that we create in the world, even as God has created us. Part of being his image bearers is to be creative beings. We are to make all kinds of things. We make babies. We make software. We make furniture. We make farms. We make business. We make all kinds of things. But evil finds creativity to be off-putting and even anathema. Evil can't tolerate the creation of beauty. And so part of shame's mission, the way evil will want to use it, is not just to make us feel bad. It wants us to feel bad such that we will not be able to create the beauty that God has prepared for us to create before the foundation of the world. And so one of the things that we're doing as parents is we are enabling, as moms, we are enabling, we bring our children up into the world not just to be obedient, not just to be good citizens. We want to train them to be people who have a vision for becoming outposts of beauty and goodness, for becoming creative impulses in the world that God is going to bear witness to the world through their creative power. Shame wants to shear all that off.
This episode is brought to you thanks to sponsors like Honey Love. Now, I know we're talking about shame, and I'm going to jump in with no shame because I believe strongly that moms, it is time for you to take care of yourself, especially when it comes to your most intimate garments. And I'm going to tell you why I love the Honey Love bras, okay? One, particularly this summer. It is so hot, and it is not a time for bulky and uncomfortable bras. I love that I can reach for my Honey Love crossover bra. It's their most popular one, by the way, and know that I'm not going to get sticky and sweaty. I'm also going to find support without all the underwire pokes, the armor it feels like. It is the best wireless bra that feels like second skin. They're lightweight and breathable. Whether I am rocking a t-shirt, a tank, a sundress, they give me just the right amount of lift and support. And like I said, comfort. I'm telling y'all, you've got to try these out. Treat yourself to 20% off your entire order when you go to honeylove.com/DMA. Make sure you give us a shout out. You deserve this glow up, moms. And they have so many other things. If you're on their site, you want to look around. They recently launched their new Cloud Embrace bra, which sold out in days. And they have shapewear. I love their shapewear. I could go on and on, but we got to move on to the show. They have their best-selling Super Power Shorts that has this targeted compression technology. So great. I'm telling you, you need to treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/DMA. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off. honeylove.com/DMA. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras with Honey Love.
And so we see that it begins early, and it doesn't just affect the individuals. Those individuals go on to have impact on other people's lives as well. Shame spreads like a bad virus. In the Bible's narrative, in the biblical narrative, we see that also shame shows up early and often. In Genesis the end of chapter 2, we get this harbinger of it, right? That the woman and the man were naked and they were unashamed. And then we see it in Genesis chapter 3, where it plays such a crucial role. And then throughout the rest of the Genesis account, we see where shame shows up in so many different ways. And then right up to Good Friday, we see how with the crucifixion, one of the things that God does with shame is that God says to us, there's nothing that you've experienced that is so shameful that I am not willing to join you in it. There's nothing that we've done as human beings that has been more humiliating than crucifying other brothers and sisters, which is what the Romans did. The Greeks did it before them. The Greeks had their own version of it. But the Romans did this. They were well known for it. But it was such a humiliating act. It was not just an act of torture in its execution. It was an act intended to humiliate the cultures in which those people were being crucified. And as an act of humiliation, Jesus doesn't have any clothes on. I mean, our artwork notwithstanding, there's no clothing. And he's not 30 yards away, 10 feet in the air. He's right on the side of the road where people can see him, up close and personal. And God is saying to us, there is nothing that is so shameful that I'm not willing to enter into it. There's nothing so shameful that you've experienced that I don't know. And so therefore, I need you to know that I know how hard this is. I know how much work is involved in this, and I'm coming to find you over and over and over again in order to, in your shame, see that I have joined you in it, and I'm going to remain with you in it as long as it takes to invite you, to persuade you to look more at me than you are looking at your shame, in order for you to allow me to bring you out of it. There will be moments, there will be dozens of moments every day. I mean, like, heck, I tell people, look, I'm not just a sinner, I'm a professional sinner. Right. I'm really good at it. I'm glad that there are only 10 commandments and not 20 commandments, because if there were 20, I'd be breaking 20 of them every single day. There are so many moments in which God has to come to me every day and say, in this moment of shame, Curt, I want you to look at me and not at your shame, and let me take you to the place where I next want to take you.
Oh, my stars, Curt. Like, everything you said on repeat 1,000 times. First of all, your word to the parents almost had me in tears. I think every mom listening, especially all we've been through in 2020, needed to hear that it's not too much for God. He's not surprised. He's not worried. And then, I mean, truly laying out the gospel for us, the connection between creativity and shame, having just walked through a very creative journey of piecing a book together, feeling really vulnerable, and shame coming in constantly saying I'm not enough and someone could do it better and it's already been said. And I'm thinking of the creative process of human beings going from babyhood to adulthood, and how we are so vulnerable to send these little human beings into schools and out on soccer fields, and how if they make a mistake, we feel the shame of that, the connection of parenting, the compounding of how our previously held undealt with shame or daily shame compounds with my child's behaviors. And anyway, and then the marriage, and then the friendships, like all the potential for isolating. But to hear that even if a human being doesn't come after me, Jesus is coming after me, and he is seeking me out, and he doesn't think I'm too far gone, is such a relief. So in light of all that, if we are in that moment and I am feeling the compounding shame of whether it's my child is misbehaving and I'm taking on their shame with my shame, or they're on the soccer field and something happens and I am feeling not enough because they didn't hit the expectation, or there's a conflict with my spouse and I'm taking on the shame of that, or in a career move, whatever creative effort we're a part of, and shame is coming in, what do I do in that moment to combat it, to not isolate and physically? Because there is, like you said, a neurological response that we don't need to feel shame for feeling shame, because it is how we are wired.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah. Well, the answer, I think, as I tell patients, life is actually extraordinarily simple. It's very simple, and it's excruciatingly difficult. But it's not difficult because it's complicated. It's difficult because of the amount of work that is involved if we want to become as effective as we say that we want to become as followers of Jesus. If you read the New Testament, if I read the New Testament, I find that if I were to do the things that St. Paul talks about, if I were to take in, we like to say, if I'm going to ingest, digest, and metabolize the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, if I were to do the work that is required to become the fruit of the Spirit, to become the book of Ephesians, to become Romans 8,
Right.
Heather, that is virtually a full-time job.
Yeah. Impossible.
And we live in a culture in which we kind of think that being followers of Jesus is something we think it's far easier than it is. And so when we say, what do we do? Like, I have to say, I don't have like, well, here are the 3 things that you do, and you do these things and you won't feel shame anymore.
Right.
No, it's the kind of thing that it's a similar kind of question when we say, well, how do I actually get into shape? That's what we're really asking. We're not asking like, well, how do I walk from here to the grocery store that's a mile away? No, it's how do I get into shape? And to get into shape means you're going to be in the gym 4 or 5 days a week for 90 minutes, and you're going to work your tail off, and you are going to take in these things, and it's going to require great effort. And I speak to myself. So let me just give you an example. So on Sunday, we're recording this in early December. This past Sunday, on an Advent evening, we listened to a sermon of a friend of ours who's a pastor in Pittsburgh, and the sermon was about angels and this notion of how we typically think that angels are like good guys. They come and give us good news. There are our angels that protect us, our guardian angels, so forth and so on. And the reality is, in the Gospels, angels, when they show up, things get complicated.
Everyone feels fear.
For everybody. And the first thing they say is, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Heather, the reality is, and that command, it's been documented that the command, do not be afraid, is the most frequently uttered command in all of Scripture. And I have to say, I don't pay attention to it. I do not do the work of practicing not being afraid. In fact, I practice just the opposite. I know we're not supposed to be afraid, but we are personally, we're in the middle of we have our own kind of family mental health crisis that we're in the middle of right now that has taken me, right to the edge of myself. And I've had many moments when I've been very afraid, more fearful than I've been ever. And it's easy for me to be afraid because I don't practice being anything other than that. And so I say this as an example of what it means for us to practice not being ashamed. It means it will require the kind of work that is necessary for us to change the nature of how our neural circuitry, our brain cells, are wired. And that takes time to do. That takes the same kind of time that it takes to get into shape over a period of many, many weeks. It's not the kind of thing that I listen to on a podcast and say, oh, I can do that. And when I do that, standing on the soccer field, I won't feel ashamed. No, it's the kind of thing that you're going to have to practice doing day in and day out, week in and week out, until we're dead.
Yeah.
But there are some things that we can do and that are necessary. So here's one thing. It's really important for us to remember that, as we said earlier, when it comes to shame, we do not, on our own, heal ourselves of this problem. We actually have to borrow from other people's minds. I have to borrow the facial expression, the tone of voice of you, Heather, saying to me, Curt, I'm with you. This is really hard. I really hear how badly you feel about this. And I just want you to know that I'm with you. And so I can't just take in your words. I can't just take in and hear like the facts. Like, Curt, you don't need to be ashamed of that. That's talking to a part of my brain where my shame doesn't really dwell. The part of my brain where shame dwells is the part where I have to remember sensing the tone of your voice, sensing what your eyesight looks like, other moms, like hearing. So who are going to be the 2 or 3 other moms who are going to be in my cohort of people who are going to help me tell my story more truly. And by telling me my story, I don't just mean telling me the facts, saying to me that God loves me, saying to me that there is no shame, reminding me that Jesus isn't worried about this. All those are important, but what's most important is that as you tell me that you are with me in my shame and that my shame is hard to work out of, I'm going to pay more attention to my memory of what you've just said to me. And by what, I don't just mean the words. I mean, I'm going to remember where we were sitting in the room or where we were standing as we went for a walk now that we're in COVID. I'm going to remember the sound of your voice. I'm going to remember the feeling that I felt in my chest as it lightened, as I saw the tears in your eyes as you held my story as I told you my story. We do a lot of work with groups in our practice. And one of the things that we frequently do is that when one member has an experience in which they've sensed being deeply cared for by the other members in this community, we will say to them, like, we will stop the conversation and we will have them just simply wait and sit with what they're feeling. We will have them remember on purpose and pay attention to what they feel in their face and their chest and their abdomen. We want them to fully embody what it means for someone to come and find them, and then practice remembering that. And so then we will give them the assignment 2-3 times a day between now and next week. When you come back to next week's group, we want you to take 3 minutes 3 times a day out of your day. And we want you to remember what it felt like to have Sarah and Jim and Paul and Emily come to find you. Because you see, as we like to say, until we sense something in our bodies, whatever it is that we're talking about is not yet fully real. You can tell me until the cows come home that Jesus loves me, but until I sense it in my chest, it's just a fact. And so who will be those people who will come to find us? So practicing that, having our stories told, we're telling our stories to others. We are practicing paying attention to those actual moments when someone's coming to find us. We are then, second thing we can do is we can journal about those things. We write those things down, we commit those things to memory, and then we practice taking those moments literally with us into the day, in the same way that I have to practice taking the moment of when the light turns from green to yellow, I begin to practice slowing my car down. I have to commit that to a felt extended memory in order for that to make a difference. Those are just a couple of things that we can do to begin to undo this problem.
Huge. I'm thinking of friends of mine who model this well, who have modeled labeling their shame and sharing with a couple of us, whether it's via text or Marco Polo is a great tool for moms, and saying this familiar feeling is coming back. And instead of us saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that, and dismissing it, getting curious about why. I'm curious to know what's happening. And then they can start to unpack and we can empathize and ask more questions. And I think what you're saying, like, show up for them. And if they then communicate that they need to know that even if X, Y, and Z happens, whatever's causing the shame, that they are loved and they are worthy. And we can communicate that.
Right.
Is being that body of Christ, is doing
exactly. And Heather, you can do some other practical things. Like, you can ask people, do you sense it in my voice? Like, you can be really explicit about this. It's a good thing. Can you sense it in my voice? Tell me what you're feeling. Where are you feeling your shame? Where are you feeling now? Where are you feeling loved?
Yeah.
To bring it to explicit consciousness, because if we do that, then we have something to lock our memory on, to which we can then encode and then return to it 15 minutes later when the conversation is over. The more explicit we become in naming those things that we do in our embodied experience that bring healing and deliverance from shame, the more we are able to repeat this. Hence, when Jesus says, do this in remembrance of me, he's not just talking about some rote behavior at the Eucharist. He's talking about, remember what it was like for you, Matthew, when I came to find you at your table. Remember what it was like for you, who in your shame I'm coming to find you. Remember, remember, remember in these embodied ways.
I'm so thankful I can bring conversations like this to you thanks to sponsors like OutSchool. Now, parents, do you ever feel like you're stuck in survival mode I think we've all been there. I know I have, where you're kind of just settling for good enough to get through. But here's the thing, you shouldn't have to settle when it comes to your kids' schooling, and you shouldn't have to fit your child into a system that wasn't built for them. With cookie cutter lesson plans or packed classrooms and test scores taking top priority. That is one of the reasons I love that I get to introduce you to OutSchool. Here's the scoop. OutSchool's not a new version of the system. It's a completely different way to learn. It's one that's built around your child, not someone else's framework. Now, don't get overwhelmed, but they offer over 100,000 live small group classes on everything from core subjects to really niche, unique topics. Like they have a whole section just for rainy days. And I found, now this wasn't a small group class. This was a one-on-one coaching that is applicable to me in my season. It's called From Draft to Dream School, Writing Your College Personal Statement. That was one offering. They had a social skills class for 7 to 9-year-olds. And then I did some like dabbling around beyond the core subjects. They had electives from anywhere in music, art. They even had a whole world language section where you could do Arabic or Chinese or Latin or Spanish, so many different languages. There are so many choices. You really can personalize your child's learning. Whether you are a homeschool family, public school, private school, you want to augment your child's school, you want support on a subject they're struggling in, or they just have an interest and they want to go deeper. They even have a concierge service for members to help you find the right classes for your kids and build the schedule that works for your family. I love that you get to pick the teachers instead of crossing your fingers and hoping your kid gets a good one this year. They're 5-star teachers with an average of 1 to 4 teacher-student ratio. And with OutSchool, you can create space for joy in your kids, help them grow beyond the classroom, create lifelong learners. OutSchool membership starts at just $40 a month. You can use that same plan for all the kids in your family, and those credits, they roll over from month to month. And I have a special back to school deal for you. If you want to try OutSchool, you can get your family's first month for only $1 for a limited time when you use the link outschool.com/DMA. OutSchool will be a game changer for your family. This new membership exclusive discount, though, is only available when you go through our link and use the code DMA. That's outschool.com/DMA. Sadly, summer is wrapping up around here, and I have been such a fan of the simplicity on so many levels, including my simple, clean, radiant summer look thanks to Thrive Cosmetics. They are a great sponsor of our show, and I love getting to share them with you because I literally use their products every day. And what I love is I know that I'm getting a clean, 100% vegan, cruelty-free, skin-loving ingredients that work with my skin, not against it. And they work. Like they're really high quality. I'm going to tell you about them in a second. And then also with every purchase, I know that I'm helping communities thrive because Thrive Cosmetics donates products and funds to these communities with over $150 million in product and cash donations to 600 plus giving partners. When you purchase something from Thrive Cosmetics, you're making a real impact. Now, let me tell you, I always talk about their mascara, so I'm going to take a little pivot and I'm going to talk about their Brilliant Eye Brightener. I've started using it a little bit more this summer. It is this great eyeshadow highlighter stick that can brighten and open your eyes. I put it on. I even use the Thrive Cosmetics, like their eyeshadow brush to kind of smooth it in a little bit. But it can give you this radiant look, whether you're going to the beach or the pool, or if you're heading back to school and you're going in for a teacher's conference, you're going to look amazing. You put it in the inner corner of your eye to look rested and effortless. And it is a foolproof formula. It will last me all day. It's so easy to apply and blend. And they have 34 different shades. So if I have the brightener in the corner of my eye, and then I get a darker shade that I put along the crease of my eye. And then I use that brush to kind of blend it all together. And of course, I use the mascara, their liquid lash extension mascara, which I love. Maximize your look with minimal effort. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/DMA for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/DMA. I'm thinking of also, I have 4 children, and there is one coming to mind who physically, I mean, you said we all physically respond to shame, but I like turns his body, if we're in the
Mm.
car, towards the door, almost smashing himself against the window, will unbuckle and get in the far back of the SUV, will run up to his room, into his closet to physically avoid, and feels shame. Or if I ask, what are you thinking right now? It's often not that I did something wrong, but that I am wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That and parented all 4 the same, but his response, there is some sensory stuff going on. I don't know that his vestibular system has been impacted. You talk in your book about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic and the fight or flight. I feel like neurologically his system was already programmed in a way that's different from other boys. And then personality on top of that. How do we as moms, if we have a child like that, I know we can't become codependent, it's their journey, but how do we foster that same sort of awareness that we were talking about just with our friends?
Right. It's a great question. And I think what it really does is it highlights this notion of just acknowledging how difficult it is at times to find the line that divides where my responsibility as a parent ends and my child's responsibility as a child begins.
Yeah.
That line is a moving target. It's rather blurry. I don't always know where it is. Day to day to day, that line changes, it seems like. And it's different between me and different kids that I have. And it's one of the things I think that is, we like to talk about, the relationships in many respects kind of mimic, brain cells. Brain cells, they talk to one another and they don't actually touch one another. They talk to one another by one brain cell dumping chemicals into this space called a synapse. And that those chemicals cross the synapse, they cross that little divide and they take up residence in the other brain cell that the first brain cell is trying to communicate with. And that space in between, that synapse, that really is the space that occupies that which is between us and our kid. And that's where the Holy Spirit works. And I don't know always where that line is, but I do know that, as we like to say, we cannot, as human beings, we cannot guarantee good outcomes. I can do what I can do. And so when we have a child that has sensory sensitivities, when we have a child that has a certain personality or temperament issues that are maybe different from the rest of our kids, we as parents will do the best we can to find where the line is. We will do that imperfectly, and we will do everything that we can because we're going to read the literature, we're going to get help from counselors and get help from other parents about tactically what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But mostly what's going to be important as far as our own shame management is concerned is that we have other parents who are coming to find us in that same moment where we're coming to find our children and doing so imperfectly. Because as we do so imperfectly and that imperfection raises its head, we're going to be tempted not just to work harder to find the next best thing we're supposed to be doing, we're going to be tempted to feel bad that we're not doing a good enough job.
Yeah.
And it's in that space where we will need others who will say to us, Jesus is not worried about this. He's on the job as we are on the job. And I just want you to breathe, and we're going to breathe with you. And I want you to pay as much attention to Jesus and to me as I want you to pay attention to your child. And I want you to stop paying attention to your worry and to your shame. And all of that takes a great deal of hard work. And it's not hard, Heather, because we're stupid or because we're pansies or because we're weaklings. It's hard because evil is intent upon devouring the world, and it will do everything it can to interfere with God's goodness and beauty showing up, and especially in those harder moments. But it's in those harder moments where we would say that the gospel is most eager to reveal itself, and not perhaps because we get immediate good results from all of our hard work, but because it's in those hard places where God is saying, I will not ever stop loving you or your child, even in this very hard space.
I mean, thank you. That ministered to me. And I think that advice also applies to a spouse that you may be feeling burdensome for the shame they're carrying, and how to be a voice of Jesus to them without jumping into that shame cycle with them. But man, Curt, I'm real mad that our time's up, but I think that there's so much goodness to start off our 2021, everything that you said. And I fully confidently point y'all listening to, I know the book I've been reading, The Soul of Shame, but he also has another book, The Anatomy of the Soul. And you have been on several podcasts recently. So y'all, you can keep this Curt consumption going, but ultimately you're pointing us back to Jesus. So if he points you back to Jesus, that is even better. Thank you so much for your encouragement to moms today, and for reminding us of who the true enemy is and the evil that is trying to rob the beauty and creativity that's available. Where can people find you online if they do want to keep following you?
Yes, thank you. And again, Heather, it's just been such a pleasure to be with you, and to all those who are listening, and just thankful for your ministry and for the work that you're doing to provide support and a fresh voice to moms who are working as hard as they are doing what they're doing. People can find my work at curtthompsonmd.com. You'll find there, you can find access to the 2 books that I've written, to a number of blog posts, especially I've written a number of essays in response to the pandemic, as well as there are, you find a way to download a free chapter of The Soul of Shame and get a taste for that. As well as there are a number of different exercises that people can find that help kind of put some flesh on the bones of some of the things that we've been talking about here. So hopefully people could find that to be a useful resource. Well,
thank you once again. I feel encouraged. So
you're most welcome.
Selfishly, this was great.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and perhaps we can do it again.
I would love it. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
All right, moms and dads, we are going to remember that Jesus, God, they're not worried about our kids. They're not worried about our parenting, that he has not run out of options, and that is good news. I also pray that you will find your 2 to 3 other moms or people that you can go to that can disrupt that shame cycle for you, that you can recognize the shame cycle. You can see it in yourself when you are isolating, when you are believing something that is not true and you're getting stuck. To me, that is the hardest thing, is disrupting that cycle to reach out to someone. And maybe you have a friend group and you have a code word. It could be as simple as shame spiral or something, and they will call you. I think it's really, really important that we have this kind of confessional community. So I'm going to pray over us. Lord, I thank you for the work that Dr. Thompson has done to really narrow in on how we are made, and also what's true about you, God, how you come looking for us, and also how you give us people to walk alongside us and to guide us. I pray for whoever's listening that you would bring to mind, open their eyes to see those in their community that they could create this kind of confessional group with, this life team that can pull them out of shame spirals. I pray over this school year that we would choose to believe that you have not run out of options when worry tries to take us down. I pray, Lord, over each of the kids represented by those who are listening. We know that you are guiding them, that you love them. I pray that we could be the ones who also go after our kids when they're feeling shame and spiraling, and that we can remind them what's true about who they are and who you are. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, thanks y'all for listening. Next week, we will be back. Regularly scheduled programming. It's a little bit of a pivot from our spiritual disciplines of the summer. I have my friend Tara coming on to talk about decluttering, because I feel like once I get my kids back in school, the home, like the chaos kind of dies down as far as the home being used so much, and it's time to declutter. So I thought I'd have her on to give us some tips. I'll meet you back here next week. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Don't Mom Alone podcast. If you're wanting to connect with more people and more resources to help remind you that you're not alone, head over to don'tmomalone.com. That's where you'll also find show notes with any links mentioned by our guests. Most importantly, I want you to know the good news, the great news that you're not alone because God has promised to always be with you. With faith in Jesus Christ, the one who died for you and rose again, Jesus said when he left, he was going to leave a helper, a comforter, to be with us. God in us. Moms, that's superpower. So while you're washing dishes at your kitchen sink, while you're driving to and from work, while you're feeding that baby late into the night, while you're cleaning sticky floors, God promises to be just as present with you as when you're worshiping in a church pew. As it says in Zephaniah 3:17, the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. Now that's good news. Have a great day.
Meet new people and express your true self. Play IMVU, and you can customize your avatar and world to your tastes. In this virtual universe, you can choose from over 54 million items and join in on over 300,000 chat rooms. Create your unique style and show it off to millions of IMVU users around the world. Come find your community on IMVU, whether that be friends or more. Dress, play, connect. Download IMVU from the App Store or Google Play today.